KCAA.
You're listening to an encore presentation of this program, KCAA, the Inland Talk Express.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, our topic is the psychosis of racism and fear of Black excellence. Is white supremacy an illusion? So I'm going to begin this segment by an article that I read by Alvin Poussant, who is he's a physician. Actually, he's a psychiatrist, well known for his research on the effects of racism in the Black community. He is the dean of students at Harvard Medical School, and his work in psychiatry is influenced greatly by the civil rights movement in the South, which he joined in 1965. And the article that he wrote that I'm going to read from is Extreme Racism a Mental Illness? And he says that after several racist killings in the civil rights era, a group of Black psychiatrists sought to have extreme bigotry classified as a mental disorder. So this is his suggestion, and as far as suggesting this under the American Psychiatric Association to classify extreme racism as a psychiatric disorder or a psychotic disorder. He says that he defines it as a delusion whose theme is that a group of individuals who share a defining characteristic in one's environment have a particular and unusual significance. These delusions are usually of a negative or pejorative nature, but also may be grandiose in content. When these delusions are extreme, the person may act out by attempting to harm and even murder members of a despised group. Says extreme racist delusions can also occur as a major symptom in other psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Persons suffering delusions usually have serious social dysfunction that impairs their ability to work with others and maintain employment. And he says that it's time for the American Psychiatric Association to designate extreme racism as a mental health problem by recognizing it as a delusional psychotic symptom. Persons afflicted with such psychosis represent an immediate danger to themselves and to others, right? So, you know, one of the things that I've always stated when we talked about the issue of racism is that, first of all, I've never really been a big fan of the term racism because I thought of it as more of a sickness. You know, I think that you give it some degree of legitimacy when you refer to it as racism, right? You know, just without looking, I always say we should look at it as these people being psychotic, or you know, it being some sort of sickness, right? And unfortunately, you know, we kind of define it in a way which gives it some degree of power, right? And which is extremely, you know, untrue when you think about the whole idea of racism. And I'm not really a big fan of the narrative that we have when we talk about the issue of racism. I mean, I'm not a fan of it at all. And oftentimes the narrative that we usually describe it, or whenever we talk about the issue of racism, is always from the perspective of supremacy, right, or privilege. And from us being somewhat of victims, right? And that gives it power that that is not realistic, nor power that I believe that it actually deserves, right? And so, they've been able to capitalize on the narrative just simply because of our own internalized racism by allowing someone to, impose their mental, because oftentimes, I mean, when people are suffering from mental diseases or from mental problems, oftentimes people who are around those individuals have to suffer the wrath of that particular psychosis. And after a while, it has, an impact on those individuals, right? Which has happened to us as African Americans or Black people here in America. So one of the major things that we have to do as Black people is we have to definitely change the narrative as it relates to their so-called privilege or their so-called supremacy. Now, I know that lately there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of talk about, Kanye West and this situation, about Kyrie Irving and his situation, and how, and then how individuals were so quick to go to criticize both Kyrie and Kanye from our own community, and how they should have, and I think a lot of what, and even when they talked about, who were some of the suspects in that situation, it was Charles Barkley, Shaq, who else?
Stephen A.
Smith, and who else?
LeBron spoke out too.
Yeah.
And you had LeBron that made a statement about the issue, and and so people been on them, about them making that statement. And then you had, of course, LeBron, who came back later on and asked the press about why didn't they ask him about Jerry Jones and the fact that he was captured in a picture during apparently it was in Arkansas when they had some Black students who were, I guess, being escorted or in the process of segregating into a school, and this mob was outside and his picture was seen there. So he wanted to know why wasn't that brought out?
Exactly.
Right. So, I look at it and I think that when, is that the best way to, and then of course, when they came out and they made those statements and they were critical of them, I think a lot of it was, I'm not quite sure why they were so quick to go out without trying to necessarily understand. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not so sure that they probably even saw the video that he posted. I think that a lot of times we feed off of sound bites and we just make assumptions, and it was an opportunity for whatever reason for them to, to go out and make those condemnations, especially against Kyrie, which, seemed to be a little bit quick to criticize. Now, and when you kind of break up that issue with Kyrie and his posting, and let's just analyze that from in a light that's most favorable to Kyrie, right? I mean, if he's looking at, just keep in mind, this is something that he got off of Amazon. Amazon just recently refused to take it off his platform, right? Isn't it Amazon?
Yeah.
They refuse to take it off the platform, and there is no Amazon's not apologizing. Nobody's boycotting Amazon.
That's right.
It's been, and in fact, the scuttlebutt is that it played in a movie owned by Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, in a movie theater owned by Shaquille O'Neal, right? So that makes it questionable about why Kyrie, who's looking at his social media, sees that he posted, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue when it's been on that platform and nobody has said anything about it, right? That seems to be, relatively unfair. But let's just assume you're looking, there's a film or there's a book or whatever it is, and like in many cases, there can always be something about a film or a book or anything where there may be something that you agree with, and there may be parts of it that you don't agree with, right?
Right.
And does that negate the fact that of what you're trying to express, right? And let me give you a great example of why it's unfair if you're going to use that analysis. And I'll use this analysis. Let's just say that the America as a nation, right? I would think that most of us, when we talk about America, we're going to go through the first break, and when we talk about America, I think that most of us have positive things at some point to say about the ideals of America, right?
Yeah.
When you say I'm a citizen of this country, and there's greatness in this country, does that mean that if you say America's great, or you go and you serve America, you serve your country as a veteran, as many Black people have done, in light of the fact of what America has done to people, right? Such as the centuries of slavery, such as the Jim Crow, such as COINTELPRO, such as many things that our nation, without question, has done bad, right? Does the fact that you say that America is a great nation, does its spotty past, does that negate the greatness of it? Or does it negate the fact that America is a great nation? The point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to use this as an analogy, is that you cannot say that if a person says that America is a great nation, you can automatically condemn that individual because it says that you're co-signing the ugliness that we have in our history, right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And it's the same thing when you're saying, okay, I'm looking at this film, or I'm looking at this documentary, and there's some things in this documentary that may be inaccurate.
Correct.
And if I co-sign this documentary that may have some negative things in it, does that mean that I co-sign the negative aspects of it?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that, for example, whether it is an artist, or whether it is, and when I say artist, I mean an actor or an actress or a songwriter or a movie or a documentary, or whatever the case may be, there sometimes you can, let me give you like Wakanda Forever. Now, for me, I like the movie.
Okay.
Right? But there are a lot of people that say that it's a terrible movie because they take all the Black man completely out of it. It's a movie about Black women, and then the Black man is just completely, they couldn't find a Black man to take over for Chadwick Boseman to be the Black Panther.
Yeah.
You can't. If Superman died, or if the person playing Superman died, would they get rid of the character and let a woman play Superman or Batman? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you've completely got rid of this character. He's dead, and now all of a sudden you put a woman in this place. So there's individuals that were very critical of the movie because of that concept that they used And we've heard a lot about that,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
But I personally like the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But I understand what they're
he's
saying.
exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Got it.
Because whether people believe it or not, black people can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Right.
Right? We are intelligent enough to look at something and differentiate between what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
There's no absolutes in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if as you grow and you become intelligent, it just doesn't work. It's almost like me saying that for me to have a relationship with considering our past, right? Mm-hmm. If someone says, because you have a relationship with white people, then that's bad because you know what white people did to us.
Yeah.
Could you make that argument?
I mean, you could.
You see what I'm saying?
You could. Yeah,
so the point I'm trying to make is that an irrational excuse that he said he had it, he didn't look, whatever. There's parts of it he didn't believe in, and he doesn't co-sign. And if I hurt somebody, I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah.
That seems very much, that's overboard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously that seems very rational to me because, it insults his intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it says that, you know what, you don't know better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That you cannot look at a movie and say, or a documentary and say that there's things when it's, and primarily what he is saying is it has to do with the fact that they're saying that people of African descent may be the original Hebrews.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, there's people, does that sound, that's not new.
Right.
That's not,
right. Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying that, but then when somebody of his caliber says it, is that what, is that really where, you're upset about? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
yeah, his
exactly.
platform. I can say it all day.
Right.
Nobody is just going to be us, but, letting it to the masses. So that's where the problem comes in.
So it's just like anything, sometimes you have to pick and you have to choose your fights.
Yes.
Just like if someone says, okay, Jerry Jones, because he was standing outside of that school with people that were mobbing to criticize the integration of the school,
Mm-hmm.
then that means that he's basically, a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
Can I come to that conclusion?
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So in other words, what I'm saying is that basically, he says he's not a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's not racist. Are there things that he has done in his adult life recently that would suggest otherwise? Right?
Right.
But am I going to hang my hat on that picture? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point that someone is saying is like, okay, if you can, one is as much of a stretch as the other.
Exactly.
Now, if he's in a picture where this happened, there's no way that he possibly could have been standing there and not have been a white supremacist because there's no way two things, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Just like there's no way that someone can look at a movie or a documentary that has negative things in it that you like. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like there's certain rap songs that I like. Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely lyrics that I don't co-sign.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's certain things I hear and it's like, man, he didn't even have to say that.
Exactly.
That would have still been it's a hot song.
Yeah.
It's a hot hook. It's just hot. And then he had to go there. Why was he saying that?
Exactly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I still like it. I still bump it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm in my car.
That's the truth.
You see what I'm saying?
That's the truth. My struggle all the time.
Right. So I think that, it is a play on our intelligence, but this is really what's happening. This is to show you the power that we have that we don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a guy that was interviewing some people on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I watched one in Japan and I watched one in Korea.
Okay.
And they were going around and they were asking, what do you thought about black people? These were younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And their embracing of our culture is unbelievable.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the culture of the when you think of American culture, and we've talked about this before, whether you go to anywhere in Asia and in Europe or whatever, you know, if you go to Europe and you see a black person from Nigeria, from Ghana, that's never been to the U.S., but is in London, they're going to dress like us.
Yeah.
When you hear those guys that are rapping in Africa, they're rapping like us.
Correct.
Yeah.
So our culture is so, I think that it's more than we even realize.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That younger people in different places have embraced our swag.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, that's the threat right there.
That is the threat.
That's the threat right there,
Yeah.
that we can influence the world with our cultural values and the things that we do, and we influence the whole world. That's where the problem comes.
That's where the fear is coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're the champs.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, when Kyrie Irving get up there, it's not just something small.
Right.
It's something great, because they see a threat in that this can be. It's just like when the stuff happened with George Floyd. It was all over the world. People were protesting in every country almost.
Right.
So when you have that type of influence, and then you have someone that with a platform that can put this out and have people go look at a documentary or go read a book, that's a threat.
It's absolute threat. Yeah. And that's the fear.
Yeah. Exactly.
The fear isn't like he just tweeted it and that it's like, you know, there may be things that are questionable that by him doing it, they don't want people to know.
To wake up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So my thing I thought it was extremely unfair for them to do that, right? And this is another thing, is what about, let's say Kanye be tripping, but I have to say that, you know, but let's say when he said that, you know, the situation he said about slavery was a choice. Well, what did Nike do? Who does it? Is it Adidas?
Adidas.
What did Adidas do?
They didn't do nothing.
What did any of those platforms
and all of them? They didn't do nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
So why not?
Because it's not a threat to them.
It's a black man speaking against something they don't want to talk about anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my point is that if you're going to do that, you need to do it with the same intensity, with no matter what he said. It should have been the same reaction. It should have said, you know what, we're going to cut ties with Kanye West because of what he said was extremely insensitive to African Americans. To say that, that's extremely insensitive to say something like that was a choice.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, I mean, and that's where I'm going with it. If you're going to do that, if you're going to start trying to cancel people because of, you know, these things that you perceive to be insensitive, then you need to be consistent about what you're doing.
Right.
But also it goes back to, even if you create music that promotes black on black crime, right? You can hear about that all day long.
Right.
But if I promote some music talking about some gays or something like that, then it's an issue.
Oh, immediately.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a big issue with that. And so there's that double standard there. You know, so I mean,
well,
that's,
if they want to talk about insensitive, why don't they talk about the way that the Ethiopian Jews are treated in Israel?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How they're discriminated against.
Yeah.
Right? Who have been, you know, we talk about having, you know, this genetic connection, who they were actually proven to have DNA connected to what would consider them so-called Hebrew.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you're going to discriminate against those individuals, but nobody says anything. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes into play. And that's where we talk about the whole, there's a psychosis behind it. It makes you act irrationally, and it actually makes you act, it's delusional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like that's, and we have to understand, we have to step back, and we have to look at, the narrative that we're creating when we act like that we're victims. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The reality of it is that they're the ones that have issues, not us.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though there may be, the issues that obviously we have, and we can do a lot of things better as a community.
Absolutely.
The focus cannot be on what they're going to give us or what they're going to do for us. We have to collectively understand our power and to understand our greatness.
Yeah.
Because they definitely do.
Yeah, but we understand that if we come to terms and we begin to understand that how great of an influence and the great power that we do have, it's a done deal.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you was talking about the great influence that we have over all these different, whether it be in a different country or a different state, I thought about something where I saw a documentary a while back over in Japan, where they had these dudes that was doing this whole lowrider club, and they was claiming Crippin' blood. I'm like, how do you see what I said? That's just the influence that you have, and whenever you go into, man, it's just great. And I don't think we understand the power, the greatness that we have in just our overall makeup and how much influence we have over the culture, over people in the world,
Yeah.
I mean, and it is, and what it came out of. I mean, the fact that when you think about hip hop and how hip hop is basically a global empire at this point, and that people are trying to figure out ways to capitalize on it. Right. I mean, we have the product.
Yeah.
We don't have necessarily have the resources that we need, but we definitely have the product.
Yeah.
And and I'm going to be prejudiced right now and say that, and specifically as it relates to us in this country, in America.
Okay.
As African Americans, everybody's emulating us.
Yeah.
Even on the continent. Even in of the diaspora, we're the ones that are influencing more than anyone else.
Correct.
Although it is what we had to suffer and what we went through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what they talked about. They said, when you talk to someone and you think about that culture, the cool culture of America, you're going to think about the African American experience, in our culture and the way we do things, and our talent.
Yeah.
And what we're able to. I mean, we're just extremely, talented people.
And you can go to any country and sell out a stadium. I mean, you can take a country music star and take him to Japan or China, and he's probably not going to sell that out. And that's just speaking real.
Yeah.
But if you take Drake or you take one of these other, they're going to sell that concert out.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the influence that you have,
Right.
But even when you look back at some of the old, like I used to trip back and sit back and look at some of the old